Hey there. Hello again. I thought I'd do it inside today, the video, because it's getting quite windy out there now. I've actually had someone ask me to talk on a subject. That's amazing. It's never happened before, so I'm really excited about that. And I actually put it out there as well. I was like, oh, maybe someone ask me to talk on something. I just want to say, like, obviously, you know, I'm just a human being. I'm not an expert. I've just lived quite hard. And throughout my life, I've kind of collected experiences. I remember almost being jealous sometimes of, crazy in a way, but envious of other people's experiences, even if they were hard ones, because I could see how they were learning from them and how that would cause them to grow. And a subject I've been asked to speak on is when a couple have differing sexual energies. And I thought about it and I thought, well, it's interesting. It's not necessarily what I want for my channel. You know, I like to talk about spiritual things. But it's a very interesting subject and it's very important, especially now that there's many couples of different sexual persuasions living together in this lockdown situation. I, from a personal point of view, feel very privileged to be on my own in this situation. I find relationships are the most challenging scenarios, and whether that be a romantic or sexual relationship or friendships, because you're constantly being pushed, your buttons are constantly being pushed, and there's always an opportunity for triggers because nobody is completely healed. So for me, it's best for me to be in this situation right now where I'm on my own, because, you know, I'm able to really work on myself without any disturbances. And having had so many relationships, because I really have had quite a few actually, it's really great to have a break. And be able to think back and think about my experiences and reflect those to you. Now, on the subject of people having different sexual energies, I've actually experienced both ends of the spectrum. So I've experienced very, very long time ago being in a relationship with somebody who wanted sex more than I wanted sex. And then I've experienced it the other way as well, when I became more kind of embodied into my own sexual nature, shall we say, where I then went from being the person who didn't want as much sex to being the person who wanted more sex than the other person. So I can see it from both angles. It's oftentimes the guy, in my experience, more often than not. It is often the guy who does have a stronger sexual appetite, but I have seen both angles, so it can be either. If we take the example of it being the man, just for the purpose of this video, and if you're in a situation where, and of course you could, you can obviously, you could be homosexual too, so you could be lesbian or gay, but we'll talk from a heterosexual point of view today, and we'll talk from it being the point of view of the man who wants more sex. If it's different, you can easily apply this in another way. We all have the masculine and the feminine energies within us, and really it's all about integrating those energies anyway into one, or into a more coherent form. So in the situation where you have a woman who is not wanting as much to have sex as much as the man, what do you do? Especially in this situation where you are, together a lot. How do you address that? I think that it has to go much deeper than purely a desire and a lack of desire. I think that when people look at it from just that point of view, it's really simplifying something which is far more complex and which I couldn't really go into in complete detail in this video. The guy wants more sex and he wants his need to be met by his partner, and then when she's not meeting his needs to have more sex, he probably feels a range of emotions, rejection, sadness, frustration, because he wants to have sex and he's not able to, and I think a lack of understanding as well. Then these emotions are obviously projected onto his partner. So the partner then has the feelings of perhaps guilt because they're not fulfilling the need of their partner in the way that they feel or it's portrayed that they should do. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to a relationship than just sex. But fundamentally, as human beings, we have needs. We have various needs. And identifying these needs really are the key to a good relationship. And also identifying why you have these needs and where the needs are coming from. So it's not a simple subject. It's a very, very complicated subject. And the problem I feel with a lot of people is that you want to simplify it and you want a very, very simple answer and a very sort of straight fire way of going about this issue, but there isn't one. So you need to do your work, because you need to work on yourself and you need to work out what exactly is going on. First of all, if you're the person who's needing more sex, you need to work out why you are needing that. Is it purely a desire to have more sex, or is there something else going on? Because quite often it could be that it's being projected in sex, but it isn't actually that. It may be a need for attention. You know, you might just want attention. It may be a need for intimacy, and the only way you know to share that intimacy with the other person is by having sex. Men tend to be quite a strong kind of sexual energy. The masculine energy, shall we say, it's quite a strong and powerful sexual energy, and I think that many things can manifest in that energy, and it isn't always necessarily just that physical need. So I think as the person who is wanting more sex, I think you need to do some work and work out what it is that you actually want, what it is that's lacking. So I would suggest perhaps look up a list of basic needs, and work out, is it actually the sex that you want? That's the first thing to do. You may find that yes, it is. You're simply not getting enough sex. Some couples, I hear of couples where they've not had sex for, very, very long time. And clearly then, obviously, the need isn't being met. But first of all, have a look, do some work on yourself, take some time to yourself. Okay, I know you're in lockdown with your partner. It's not necessarily the most easiest thing to do, but I'm sure you can find a space, even just a corner in the house. Have a look online, research needs, research getting your needs met, research this, have a think about your own childhood, and have a think about were your needs met as a child, and maybe go from there. So that's the first thing you could do. Then you've got the actual issue here of, not getting enough sex. So it could just be purely and simply that. The problem here is it's like a never-ending kind of circle. You want more sex, and then the person who is not feeling that sexual is then put under a huge amount of pressure. And as in my video yesterday, in a loving or sexual relationship, pressure, it's not good. That is not, it's not going to help the other person want to have sex with you. Okay, so you then need to understand their needs. Okay, because I know that in one of the relationships I was in where they wanted more sex than me, the reason I didn't want to have sex with them is they were not actually meeting my needs in other areas. And in fact, they were being quite abusive to me. So I then didn't want to have sex with them because I didn't feel sexual with them for these reasons. Now, so you need to have a chat with them, and you need to have open and honest communication, not about the lack of sex. Put that aside for a minute, because I truly feel that is more of a manifestation of something much deeper. So what I would recommend you do is have an open and honest communication. And by that, I mean you need to take time to listen to each other, and you need to find out what it is with the other person. Is there anything that you are not doing that you could be doing to meet their needs? You know, something you could be doing in another way that you're not. Ask them, and then listen. And then listen by closing your mouth and actually hearing what they say. And then take some time to absorb what they've said. So often we listen and then we just come back with responses. And what you're going to find as well is your ego is going to really come into play, because when somebody talks to you like and tells you their issues, it can feel like an attack. You know, you need to take a deep breath, and you obviously love the person. You know, you love each other. You're together. You're in this situation where you are in lockdown together. What better time to work out what is going wrong in the relationship? Because in my opinion, if you've got one person wanting more sex than the other person, then you've got a problem. It's a massive issue. It's not something to be brushed under the carpet. It's a big problem. And it's quite often that lack of desire in the other person there's a reason for that. There's something else that is not quite right in the relationship. And it could be something really, really, really simple. And if you can just have the conversation and take it away from sex, see if there's anything else going on. And this is only really talking from my experience. Now, obviously, I was in a relationship that was fairly abusive, so it was a different scenario. But I can also imagine there'll be situations where perhaps somebody is not doing things around the house, you know, or there is something a very annoying behaviour going on, and that is not attractive to the other person, because they're clearly not that attracted to you if they don't want to have sex with you that much. Okay? There can be lack of desire. There can be issues there. I mean, there's a whole host of things. It could be hormonal. It could be down to age. All these things could play a part. Okay? But if it is something that can be solved, I think with a few open and frank conversations, there's a very good chance it could be. And then the person who is not wanting as much sex needs to be really open and frank about their needs, sexual and otherwise. Okay? And I also think, again, it's a really good time, isn't it, to bring in the tantra. Bring in the tantra. Bring in the positive energy sharing. So you can do other things. I mean, maybe the person who doesn't want as much sex just wants to be held. They just want to be held. They don't want to be penetrated at this time. There could be some kind of trauma there. I mean, it could be anything, but I think although you want to have sex, and that's a very powerful urge, I think you've got to come away from that, and you've got to be so open and so honest about what you're feeling, and allow the other person to do the same. And then you can find out what's really going on here. Okay? Now, it could be that you're just not compatible anymore. It could be, but you need to have that conversation, and you need to work on it, because if you're in this situation, this is a problem, okay? Because neither of you are really getting your needs met in some way, and that's what needs to happen in a relationship. You need to organise that. So, I really think that's pretty much all I have to say on the matter, other than the other thing you can do, obviously, in the meantime, as the person who isn't getting their needs met, you're going to have to find another way of meeting those needs. You know, if you need to have sex, you need to have that release, you're going to have to go off and do that, and not expect the other person to be there to meet your needs until you've worked out what's going wrong. Because until you've worked out what is going wrong in the relationship, you're going to continually be in this cycle, and in the end it's going to damage you both. You've got to have an open and honest conversation, and then you can really take it from there, because there is so much going on in this kind of a dynamic. There's probably quite a lot of repression. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of shame. There really could be anything going on. And the only way you can really deal with that is to look into yourselves and to look into each other and to work it out. And when I say have an open and frank discussion, it wouldn't be attacking each other, and it wouldn't be playing the fight games, and it wouldn't be playing the power games either. And I think you know what I mean. I think we all know what that is. It's about actually going into your heart and being completely honest about what's going on inside of you. Being completely honest. Okay, so I really hope that helps. Take care of yourselves, and yeah, I hope that things get better for you guys out there in relationships with different energy levels in lockdown. And take care of yourselves. Lots of love. Bye bye.